Blur.
Hello.
How is everybody doing?
I hope everyone. We're gonna pause to let you guys talk and tell us. We're listening.
Interesting.
Very interesting. You all look very nice today.
I'm really
Just
sorry
letting
that your least favorite coworker is being mean to you. I'm very sorry about that.
Yes, at least we're here to listen to you. But now it's time for you to listen to us at the Tammy and Wanda Show.
Yay!
It's been a hot minute for us to be on here.
Oh yeah.
You know, life
So,
happens.
Wanda came up with today's topic, so I'm gonna let her introduce it to y'all.
So I know that we haven't really jumped on this topic, and of course we're a roundabout kind of podcast here, but true crime, we haven't touched that. That's like a really big podcast world. I mean,
It's kind of a staple.
they're coming out with TV shows about people putting on podcasts. I mean, Only Murders in the Building on Hulu.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
That's a very good show for the 2 seasons, and I'm waiting for the 3rd season, but it's great.
Who's the famous podcaster that does murder mysteries and makeup? Bailey something. I'm gonna mess it up, but I love her.
Oh, really?
And I don't listen to it enough. Saracen or something like that.
When we put our
She's great.
our episode out, I'm definitely going to tag My Favorite Murder.
Ooh.
That podcast is very good. It's Karen Kilgariff and crap. What's her name? Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I would listen to you every single week because they do like mini-sodes and then they have like a big episode. But they definitely jump on like not the most well-known true crimes. Let me see. As you can
We're
see.
looking.
As you can see.
I mean, I would have looked while you were introducing, but you're recording on Tammy's phone, so that's...
Right? Oh, and Georgia Hardstark. I'm very sorry, Georgia, but it's Karen and Georgia, and they are comedians.
Oh,
Comedian
I like
writers.
that twist.
Yeah. Karen Kilgariff was on a famous sitcom show back in the 90s, I believe. Don't quote me, but I am a murderino.
A
they'll know.
murderino.
They will know. I want to get their merch, too.
You know, we need to do some merch. Would you guys buy merch? Is that something that happens with podcasts?
Oh, yeah.
Or-
Now that we're on to our 2nd season,
We got to design something fun.
we got to design something crazy.
I still think we need to have the seat covers with our faces doing, the scared face. Oh my God, you're about to sit on me!
That would be great.
Because everybody needs a cushion when you got like kids or cousins or somebody you got to go see playing some kind of
Right?
sport.
You can call us butt faces.
Oh, that's what we should call it, the butt face. Yes, that would be
Right?
great.
We're just brainstorming on this entire podcast. Fantastic. But anyways,
This is how we get stuff done.
we do. We get stuff done just rambling away. But I really love listening to true crime podcasts because I watch so many true crime shows. I don't know. It's one of my favorite genres.
Do you know what I found to be really interesting is they always seem to have like some sort of really messed up quality to all of the true crimes. Like
Yes.
there's never like it's never just like some normal murder where some guy just like walks in and just like pops somebody and then leaves. It's always some really twisted mental health type
Yes.
like complication or incident, like John Wayne Gacy, that guy.
Yeah.
Because they have the John Wayne Gacy tapes. We watched that recently.
Yeah.
Where you hear in the killer's own words why he killed people, which scares
Yes.
the ever-living shit right out of me.
Yeah. And what's really crazy is that they didn't start developing some type of serial killer profile, until Ted Bundy.
Who, by the way, that's the most messed up one.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we didn't
1980s.
We didn't even develop some type, because we never really talked about serial killers or having serial killers.
I don't know that they didn't exist before Ted Bundy. I just don't know that they were such a high profile. Yeah. So he wasn't really the first necessarily, but he was the first one that they were able to kind of interview and pinpoint certain
well, what was great
aspects of the personality, I guess, that kind of led to the psycho.
What's really great is that the FBI agent who talked to him, like, had some type of sense of, this guy is going to tell me everything that I want because he's such a narcissist.
Oh yeah, and that comes through when you listen to him talk.
Yes,
where he doesn't believe he killed somebody. It's very much in the vein of, well, if I were to be the one that had been killing these women.
Yes.
And you're
classic narcissism.
Bro, you did fucking kill these. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yes.
He's like, well, you know, if I was the killer, I kept looking at my husband going, what planet does this guy live on that he doesn't get that he killed them?
He's in Bundyland.
Bundyland. That is not a theme park I would go to.
No. You know how sadistic that theme park would be.
Oh, it would be terrible. It would be terrible. Oh my God.
But what really baffles me about serial killers, and I know we're going to be all over the spectrum for this episode, how there are so many women and men out there who will send, like, love letters to the serial killers.
Like Charles Manson?
Yes.
Where they were, like, getting married to him, and they were the brides of Charles Manson.
Yes.
Why? What's the allure? What do you think it is?
What is it?
Is it the crazy? I don't know.
I don't know. That sense of danger, knowing that they could be in danger. Like,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Like, we've done past episodes with strange fetishes. Look it up.
Yep.
In our season 1.
Like eating rocks or dressing up like an adult baby. Those were some of the highlights of that episode.
Exactly. I mean, I think this is one of those, like, strange fetishes that...
It's a brain sickness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I mean, I also watch Love After Lockup.
Another messed up TV show.
Another Messy Boots TV show. And what's really funny is that they're so happy and so in love, and, like, after they get out of jail, all of a sudden they're just like, oh my God, like,
the attraction's almost gone.
Well, that sense of control's gone.
Yeah. Because
now they're out and they're able to talk to other people that they didn't realize that they were talking to. So it's like that sense of control, and I think that's what it is that with serial killers, they're in jail for life.
Yeah.
There's nowhere that they're going to go.
They can't cheat on you. With who? Solitary confinement?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
With Big Bertha?
I don't know. I know it's probably a sickness, but then you look at...
Big Meaty Tom.
Some of these people that are, like, kind of on their stair-step way to becoming crazy, or crazy enough to be a serial killer, like Josh Duggar, for example.
Oh,
I know that's very much a religious thing and not, like, a true crime thing.
It's very much like a cult, but also I do believe that it would be a true crime.
I think if given enough time,
molestation.
Yeah, and
you know that's
a wide enough birth.
Crime.
I think that the child porn thing would have went into murder at some point. Or he's gonna murder his wife at some point. I'm convinced that Anna's gonna end up dead somehow.
Well, or you know.
I hope I'm wrong, but anytime he gets out, he's gonna resent her, because in that kind of a religion, she wasn't enough for him.
Yeah.
And they put all the blame on the woman, or women, depending on, you know, if it's a monogamous or polyamorous or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're Mormon and you have 10 wives or whatever, that's the religion. I don't know. I'm a basic Christian. I don't know stuff about a lot of other people, but...
Let's see.
You look at that and you go, that guy was well on his way to becoming a serial killer.
Uh-huh.
And is that related in some way?
That's the same with, what's his name from the FLDS?
Oh my gosh.
What's his face? I see his
Warren
face.
Jeffs.
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like he probably would have been close to it.
Well, it's kind of a similar fetish where it's almost like you said, it's a control thing a whole lot, but it's almost like they want control over young women in like FLDS and that kind of
and of
setting.
Course, like in many of the documentaries that I watch, I am no expert in this, but with documentaries and stuff, I get a lot of facts. But I guess in that culture or in that faith, the more marriages you have or the more wives you have, the better chance you are at raising to like the highest level in heaven or something like that.
Yep.
Which I find really weird.
But the women are supposed to be kept sweet, which I think is a really gross saying where you go, okay, well,
what was it?
You have to be pure and give me kids, but I can go diddle whoever I want and marry him and be closer to God. It's like,
wasn't the documentary...
I think it was called Keep Sweet.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of that title, but...
Oh, I'm telling you, there are just some really crazy things. And it's like the more you watch them, the more you realize how messed up the world is.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these killers, you have no clue that they were killers.
Well, Ted Bundy, the reason why he was so successful is because he was traditionally handsome.
Yes, that's why he
And a lot of young women were like, oh, hey. And then that's how he baited them.
Even though I don't really see it, I don't find him
I agree. I don't
attractive.
See it either.
I don't know if it was just like the suave talk that he would do.
Well, and he pretended to be injured for a few of the victims. Where he was like, can you help me get back to my car? And then just like shoved them in the car and went and killed them and left their body in the woods.
It's wild.
My favorite part of the Ted Bundy story is him jumping out of that second-story window when they let him in the library alone.
And he was out in the woods for like 2 days.
Freezing to death and starving, and he thought he was going to get away somehow. And I was like, Colorado.
I really hope that those guys, those officers, clearly he can convince officers.
How manipulative do you think a serial killer has to be? I mean,
for him to escape twice, not once.
Twice. Yeah. How?
To where he was in solitary confinement, but didn't eat, got down to a certain size, and was able to climb through the light fixture in his jail cell. I mean...
To get out. That's insane.
I mean, it takes a very... Like, he has to have a high IQ. Like, he had to have had an
I would imagine so.
IQ.
Yeah.
Because it seems like in a lot of psychologists and crime forensic people do say that people who have like super high IQs find this as a challenge. And
can I get this girl to come home with me so I can murder her and shove her body in the woods?
So it seems like it's always the people that have like high IQs.
Which is really messed up because if you think about it, they could be putting that to something much better, like curing cancer or, something that would actually help mankind versus murdering some hot chicks.
Well, and then it seems like when I listen to like the podcasts and the documentaries and stuff, it seems like they were misunderstood and were kind of like socially awkward.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like bullied. So it's like you have this high IQ, so they're the smartest person alive with a life of torment and turmoil. I mean, that's definitely a catalyst for chaos.
Well, and then you figure that leads into your first point about control too, is they didn't have control, they were being bullied, and then all of a sudden, I now have control over this woman or this man I'm about to murder, and they can't do anything about it, and they can't bully me anymore, and it's kind of like...
Yeah. If I really had the drive like I do now, when I was younger, I would have definitely loved to have been a forensic psychologist.
What a weird job. And
it would be, but it would just be so curiously strange because like I love puzzles.
Yeah, you do.
And
she'd be putting that thing together.
Yeah,
here we are.
I love puzzles. I love trying to figure out why. What makes them tick? Like, what makes them want to do this? But what's really funny is that I think I've just been so submersed into the true crime that every show I watch on Investigative Discovery, I'm like, watch, they got all their killing stuff at Walmart.
Why is that always Walmart?
And they pulled in to the Walmart.
Every time. Does no one that works at any Walmart ever go, why are you buying lye soap and a shovel and some tarps?
They are missing a commercial opportunity here. Come to Walmart.
The official store of serial killers. Can you imagine?
Get all your serial killer needs in one store.
We even sell guns and ammunition, if that's your thing. Walmart.
Like, it's so bad, but it's like every time I'm just like, oh, they went to the store. Oh, they went to Walmart.
Well, it's probably because Walmart's one of those few stores that legitimately has like anything you could want. So like you can get the shovel and a soda and some groceries that you need to, bury some chick in the woods.
There was a show. It's called American Monster on ID. And
I loved that show.
Oh, they've got a new season out and I've been binging it, so yes. But I have to wait every week for a new episode because they don't all come out at once because it's on TV and then it goes to the streaming. But all of you know that, right? Okay.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure.
But the episode that I watched Sunday, this girl, and I don't want to spoil a lot, but this girl murders a family member because they told her to never see this boyfriend again.
Oh my gosh.
Ending up going to the Home Depot.
Not Walmart this time.
Not Walmart. The Home Depot, she went to another store to get bleach to clean up. And you could tell that they were young because they kept changing the way they wanted to clean up the murder scene. First, they started with bleach and cleaned that all up. Then they decided to change it and they wanted to chop up the family member. So they went and they got a circular saw and all this other stuff. Well, then plans got changed. They decided to burn the body. So you can
tell... That's
a
pretty drastic change from...
It went from like, okay, let's clean it up and let's get him out of the way, to, okay, let's chop him up so that no one knows. And then getting disrupted by like, hey, if we don't hear from this person, we're going to call the cops. Change of plans, let's set the place on fire.
And then they're just like conveniently dead instead of I murdered them. I don't know. I can kind of get behind fire. The family member
was stabbed 70 times.
Okay. I can understand being angry enough to stab someone like once or twice.
I'll
even give you a handful of times.
With multiple tools.
Until you calm down.
They used 2 switchblade knives and a scissors. And it wasn't just one person who stabbed him. It was both of them.
Oh my gosh.
And then they ran off together, and with social media being so heavy, because this was after or during the pandemic that this happened, that social media is so heavy that when they were off in Utah, they were actually recording each other and they talked about murdering this person.
Oh my gosh. That's ridiculous.
And how they had lots and lots of sex the day after they had murdered. So you know that this person, this daughter, had no
like remorse.
Yeah. And what's really funny is that she was the youngest of 3.
Oh my god. And usually the baby's not the one that murders the parents.
Exactly. It's normally the middle child.
Always the middle child. And you know what I've noticed too is serial killers kill like 2 different types of people. Like the Menendez twins killed their parents.
Yes.
Okay? Or I guess they were brothers. I don't know if they were twins. I don't remember. I was kind of
brothers.
Small.
Yeah.
But why is it always you murder your parents or a lover or someone that you're sexually interested in? Doesn't that seem to be the case with most of these where it's like,
it is.
I'm attracted to her. She doesn't want me, so fuck her. I'm going to kill her.
Uh-huh.
Or they abused me my whole life, and I know that this is top of mind for both of us, but it likens back to something that we actually went and saw together this weekend.
Yeah.
Lizzie the musical about Lizzie Borden.
Yes.
She
highly recommend, guys.
Super good. Look up the
music.
The music's great.
Fantastic.
If you like things like Bikini Kill and Heart, that's what a lot of that music was based off of. It's so good. It's like a rock opera. But there's another case of killing your parents because they surmised that she was being abused by her father and stepmother. Yeah. And that's why she went on a hair trigger and chopped him up into a hamburger, basically. Yeah.
It is. It's very weird. And then there's those ones where when police officials or detectives talk to everybody, they're just like, they were absolutely perfect. Like, their family life was fantastic. And in the end, finding out that all they did was say no to them. Mm-hmm. And it just...
I love that comment. Every time you see any of these shows, there's always the neighbor that's like, oh, he was such a sweet boy. I don't know how he could ever have done this to these girls. And you're like, that's because he was charming. He charmed you too, bro. Yeah. Do you not realize that's what happened?
That's what blows my mind, and especially the ones another good one is Deadly Women. That's a good series to watch.
And honestly, predominantly serial killers are white. Yes. In race, which I thought was really interesting. That's just something that seems to always come up when you watch one of those. And they're predominantly men. Yes. Middle-aged white men, or even 20s to 60s seems to be the age range of white men that like to be serial killers or murder their wives or fill in the blank there.
It's crazy, especially when you look at it statistically.
And you go, okay, so if it's a sickness or some sort of control issue, what are middle-aged white men going through that is so bad?
Yeah, what's going on,
that they snap
guys?
and kill a wife or a parent? What is happening there? Like, is it a succubus situation? We've been watching Supernatural with the boys, so like the supernatural stuff's flying through my brain. Was it a succubus that convinced him to kill all those little girls, or like what gets you to the point that you get so angry or so jaded or so bullied? In your example, that you go there. I don't think I've ever been angry enough to murder someone. I've been angry enough to smack the hell out of someone, but never.
Yeah, like and I think it's just that, and also a lot of scientists have placed on a testing and looking at brains of serial killers and noticing that either they suffered some type of head trauma, or they suffered.
Usually they're
from
neurospicy.
Like a fever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they've got like some sort of like autism, where they're on the spectrum, where it's like it lends to your smart comment. Where usually autistic people or people that are on the spectrum are generally more intelligent. They just don't present their intelligence in a way that most of us understand, which is kind of the deal. So I don't know if before we kind of understood autism, would Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy, would those people, if you look back on them, are they on the spectrum?
Dahmer too. I mean, his father believed that it was because he had anesthesia, which is false. Yeah.
Millions of people get anesthesia for procedures every year and are fine. So no.
I've been under anesthesia and I haven't had
had a C-section. I'm good.
Yeah, I haven't had the eagerness to start killing people.
You don't want to go stab somebody out on the street over there?
No, I may say it, but it's just a figure of speech.
I'm going to kill him is way different than actually going and killing somebody.
There is a difference. I do not follow through with that. As I said before, orange does not look good on me.
I think I'm too pale for orange, personally, so I feel that to my core.
But I just realizing, and I believe, who was it? I forget, but there was one serial killer that had meningitis, and it affected his brain.
No, that I believe, because my dad actually had, I'm pretty sure it was meningitis. Sorry, Dad, if I get that wrong. I don't know if it was that or some form of like really extreme measles, but I'm pretty sure it was meningitis. And he was in the hospital, like in a coma for at least a few days, if not a few weeks. And you go, what does that do? Now, he's fine. He's not a murderer or anything like that. But I know how much it affected how he reacts to certain things and how quickly he can come up with an answer to a question. And he's fine, but like sometimes there's a delay.
Yeah.
So how does that affect the brain otherwise if you're not a healthy, normal human when you go into that kind of diagnosis?
Yeah.
If you've already got some sort of weird psychosis or brain thing, and then you're affecting the brain, because it affects the brain stem, if I'm not mistaken, with meningitis. And you go, okay, so it's already here, and something is already fucked up here, and do they link together when you get something like that? And that's what makes you snap?
Like, either they're, just something chemically happens.
Yes.
Which...
That I would buy into.
It's just a catalyst. And it's like, listen, guys. Science may have its ups and downs, but they're onto something.
How much of it is a chemical or a brain malfunction versus
and the
crazy?
Nature versus nurture. It goes right down to that. It's like a lot of the killers that I've watched, they've had families where like the woman serial killer who was a hooker, and she killed 7 men. I forget her name. Oh,
see, serial killers, I believe, have a little bit different motives than a man.
They do.
And I'm not defending it at all, but it seems like women are spiteful and vengeful and go on killing sprees because they were pushed too far.
Yes.
And I know that the one that movie Monster was based on, that Charlize Theron was in.
Her.
Yeah,
her.
I forget her name too. But she was basically sitting there, and they were asking her questions. And unlike Ted Bundy, she's like, yeah, I fucking killed him. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I dragged his dumbass body from, the street into my apartment, and I finished the job. And you're like, oh my God.
Aileen Wuornos.
Aileen Wuornos, yeah.
Yes, her.
Yep.
And really, her upbringing was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
It's a horrific childhood.
She was repeatedly raped. Got pregnant at 14.
Yep. Been forced to have the child and didn't have a choice in any of that.
Yes. And really, and I'm actually listening to a podcast where they're doing a long, kind of like a 6-episode, kind of breaking it all down. And the way that they described it was, that was her sense of feeling wanted because she had been so sexually traumatized by a 60-year-old man, mind you.
Yeah. And again, it all stems back to there's a reason why they turned out that way, but I feel like female ones, especially her, if you were raped that many times and you went through all of that, wouldn't you be proud of murdering all these sick predator men sexually that want to come after a woman?
And yes, mind you, a few of them were only giving her rides, but it's like, in her mind, if you think about it, she had to have been thinking, since she has been so traumatized. And I'm not defending murderers in any way or shape or form.
Not a bit.
But thinking of the scenario and the situation that she was in, even them giving her a ride and, of course, not taking her sexual advances because she felt wanted. And, I mean, that could have triggered her to kill them anyways, or she thought in some way that their intentions were not just to give her a ride to the next place,
right,
but to,
we wouldn't murder those people, but you can understand where a brain that's that underdeveloped, because you have to believe that being raped that many times as a child stunted her brain growth.
Oh yeah.
And maturity. And you go, okay, well, all she knows is he sexually wants me, he's a bad guy, I'm gonna kill him. And that's literally it. There's no intelligent spot there of, I wonder if this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, that right or wrong, it really, we all know.
Is that a chemical thing?
Yeah, it's like
sense of
knowing
right and wrong?
Right and wrong is very much a gray line. because when you think about it, it's like when you're raised, if someone tells you to touch the stove, but someone else tells you it's wrong, but you have a learned behavior of, well, I was told it's okay to touch the stove.
You're going to keep getting burned.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
because you were trained, essentially, to do that.
Exactly. And, I mean, for her, being, raised by her grandparents and being assaulted by a man who is very much the same age as her grandparents,
mm-hmm.
and then being told that she's a whore by her grandparents.
When it's not really her fault, she's being sexually abused by an older man.
Yeah. And, it's just the time and place. I mean, if this would have happened now, I'm pretty sure she would get as much help as she possibly could.
Right.
Or at least I would hope that the system would have been more involved.
I think that's
back
something
in the 80s.
I still don't think we do very well with stuff like that, though.
We don't. The system definitely fails a lot.
You look at it and you go, a lot of times when you're looking at, like, and I'm not getting into gun control or anything here, but you look at people that are the school shooters or the people that go into, like, a club and shoot up, like, that gay club in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Or a movie theater. What possesses these people to go do this? They're always having a real bad time at life.
Yes.
And there's always a need for either a therapist or antidepressants or all of the above. And you go, okay, so we're failing these people too. Because had they been taken care of emotionally, mentally, maybe they wouldn't have been pushed to feel like they had to do something drastic.
Yeah. And as you can see, we're being devil's advocates here.
Yes.
Like, in every way, shape, or form.
Killing is wrong. We believe that.
There are two sides to each story.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to put it that way. Back in high school, when I did speech and drama, I actually did a controversial piece about the mother of the Columbine shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people had a really hard time with that because that happened in 2001?
90.
Or 90...
It was the late 90s. I don't know
late
the exact
90s.
Year. Because we were both in high school around
I was
then.
in middle school when that happened, and I remember hearing people. I think I was in 8th grade, and I kept hearing
that
rumors.
Means I would have been a sophomore.
That I'm starting to hear rumors that we were all going to get metal detectors.
Because apparently the best way to keep the kids safe isn't mental health. It's
absolutely not.
Metal detectors and less entrances and exits to the school.
Uh-huh.
Now, while that does keep our kids a little safer, where there's a will, there's a way. So if somebody really wants to bring something detrimental and, stab or murder or kill or something.
And what I think is, like, really crazy is the more that we have of campus-like schools,
mm-hmm.
there are more kids. Where I grew up, you had multiple schools to go to, and then you went to the bigger schools.
There was also more attention, I think, on the students because they actually had the resources to pay attention to each of us individually. Yes. Where I have a kid in school right now that's about that age, and you go, they're not, and it's not. I'm not blaming school systems here at all. No. They do not have the resources we had back in the 90s. They do not have the amount of teachers who are passionate about keeping kids safe and normal and happy. They don't have near the resources in terms of guidance counselors or just support staff in the building that people can talk to when they're feeling a certain way.
There are a lot of kids who go misdiagnosed.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
100%. As me being a former teacher, there was a lot of kids in my care that were misdiagnosed.
I think we're fast and loose with the ADHD label nowadays. Where
it's become a fad.
It's more rampant than we thought when we were growing up. I think that there are a lot of people that should have been diagnosed that weren't in our, age group. But
I mean, I'm getting diagnosed with things that I probably should have been diagnosed with.
Right.
Back in school when they were just
could have made you more successful in school, had you known.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But I think that they're fast and loose with that because they just want to help so much, a pediatrician or a teacher that, and they don't have the time to devote that they used to have because the teachers are leaving the profession because of lack of support for them.
Yes.
So they can't support these children because they're not getting support from their administration. They're not getting support from people in the school district that want to go, you did this and you taught my kid that and you're a bad teacher.
Yeah.
Why would you stay in that toxic environment when you can't do the job you got into teaching to do without being ostracized in public?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the major reasons of, stepping back. Just knowing that I couldn't get the proper support that I needed.
And it's almost not even the school district or the administrator's fault at this point. There's just like this lack of give a shit about how our kids are learning and what they're learning. And there's so much of a push by people that watch televangelists, and that's how we're going to put that, that are religious extremists of either side, okay, that want to control the narrative of what kids are learning, and they're stressing things like testing more than the individual learning experience. And that's not the teacher's fault. That's just, well, we got to take tests so that you can get to college. And then you get to college and you pay 4 years of college, and then, hey, guess what? Now you have student loans that I am almost 40 and I'm still paying on. And you go, okay, so at what point are we failing these kids? At every point. And you wonder why we're getting so many kids that are snapping from the stress of test taking and not having an adult they can talk to.
Yeah. And I mean, watching some of these trials about these kids who are now adults, just hearing their defense, and yes, they had a rough upbringing. Like this one most recently in Florida with 2018 Parkland schools. Like, he had a rough upbringing. His mom really didn't love him.
Which is such a heartbreaking thing as a parent to hear.
His older sister was incarcerated and then was incarcerated again.
So probably the only person that took the time to love him was always gone.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
So looking at that, failing society again. And what is really sad is that when we were growing up, Columbine High School was the scariest thing alive.
And I remember, so we're going to take the gun part of it out of it, okay? The kid had a gun. My high school, I remember this vividly because I was so pissed, and I'm one of those people that doesn't shut up when I really believe in something, and I didn't have the wisdom of age behind me at the time. Where they outlawed trench coats because the shooter at Columbine was wearing a trench coat. So we weren't allowed to wear trench coats. And then we had to
carry our book bags.
Then we had to put our coats in our lockers so we didn't have anything baggy, and we were barely allowed to wear sweatshirts. And the dress code became ridiculous. Instead of going, what kind of mental health stuff should we be doing for these kids? We're not allowed to wear trench coats. That's going to keep the school safe.
Yeah, and we were able to carry book bags. Well, then we weren't allowed to carry book bags. You were allowed to carry a book bag if it was a clear book bag.
Or I know that at Bub's school they have you can wear one of those real small string ones. Because you can't really hide anything in those. They're so flimsy. You're going to see exactly what's in it.
But what's really crazy is that we didn't have any type of I understand that it didn't happen to us, but we weren't given any type of resources to kind of help us process what if this happens to us? Because we're kids. We don't even think about mortality until we get older. So when you're younger, you think that you are immortal.
You are untouchable. You're never going to get anything more than a broken bone. There's no way you're going to die because you're a kid.
It's like all of a sudden we're being told, you can't wear this, you can't have this, you have to do this.
But they're still not giving us any tools to deal with what happens if that happens here.
And a lot of, we didn't start doing lockdowns until I think I was in high school.
It was my senior year that we started them. Yeah. Where I grew up. So
it took a couple more school shootings. And now it's just second nature.
We get I think that's like a couple hundred a year.
Yeah.
Like maybe like 300-400 shootings a year, and you go, oh my God, that's 300-400 schools of kids.
When you think about it, like these kids, if we could nip this in the bud, like at a young age, and give the schools the proper resources to help these kids and help these families, because I mean, watching a lot of these documentaries, a lot of the parents had no clue about their kid, and like they've tried to reach out to them and talk to them and tried to get them, tried to be involved in their children's lives, but just couldn't. And then when they're taken to a professional, like some of the ones that I've watched where they like grew up in like the 70s and 80s, like medical professionals were just like beat it out of them.
Yeah. And now we have a society, which the one good thing that's happening is my kid has anxiety pretty bad, so we're going to throw that out there. Mm-hmm. And so his pediatrician was like, we have a child psychologist or a therapist that's right next door that he could go see. And we realized that his anxiety is rooted a lot in his own anger management problems. He can't mm-hmm. manage when he gets upset because he wants everything to be fair.
Yeah.
And so you go, okay, so my pediatrician and I are caring enough about this particular child that we've figured out his problem. Mm-hmm. But how many kids that don't have those same resources are getting kind of left by the wayside?
Yeah.
Too many.
Because our society has failed us.
That's the long and the short of it. It just keeps getting worse.
Because the ones that need the help are the ones are in the impoverished areas mm-hmm. where resources are lacking because funds have been cut.
These are the kids that rely on the free lunch and free breakfast programs at their school.
And they are mostly the ones that live in inner city schools. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones where you see the most violence.
And it's kind of shocking because as a parent, I didn't have this childhood. I talked to the kid a lot about his experience with, they do active shooter drills at his school. And he's been doing those since kindergarten. And that fucks me up. I'm sorry. As a parent, he was 5 in kindergarten and doing an active shooter drill.
Well, I remember having to do that training. Mm-hmm. And basically had to call it the hide and seek game.
And to teach children to be scared of other kids.
Yes.
And always be kind of watching your back. And I think that's half the reason why the kids got anxiety is stuff like that. Is mm-hmm. he's been growing up in a world where that's just how it is.
Yeah, and what's so funny is that I know that we try to make everything better and prevent bad things from happening, that we don't realize that we have, like, we keep pushing and pushing and pushing all this stuff on our kids mm-hmm. that they end up being so physically and mentally beat down that
he's terrified to do things. Like his stepmom and I talk all the time about, he's the one kid out of her 4 that's terrified of everything.
Yeah.
Like, it took him until he was like 11 to learn how to ride his bike, and now you can't keep him off of it. But like, he was terrified that he was going to die or like break his neck if he fell off of it, which is ridiculous. But think about what he went through versus when we grew up in the 90s, when it was like fine and happy and we didn't have to think about any of that shit.
Yeah.
Murder happened to other people, and that happened to adults. That doesn't happen to kids.
That's stuff that you saw on the news, so you knew that it wouldn't happen around your area. But now that mm-hmm. we have so much social media, so many cameras in all of our faces, that it's more like in your backyard now. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really sad. And what's really sad is that this one from 2018, a lot of his reasoning behind it was because he was rejected.
That's a lot of the reason why certain men rape too, is they feel like they've been rejected by too many women, so they just have to take what they want.
Yep. And that's where that control comes in, mm-hmm. because they don't have that sense of control. I mean, if someone would have came in and taken this kid, Nicholas something, in Florida, if someone would have removed him, if Child Protective Services could have removed him from this situation and put him in a better situation, and I'm not saying that fostering or adoption are the best places in the world.
That's another system that doesn't get enough support like it deserves.
They are absolutely flawed, and there are many people who get past the screening who cause more abuse and more trauma to these children who are being pulled away from the trauma. So there are a lot of negative things that are placed upon stuff that should be good for them. And
CPS doesn't have the resources they deserve either.
They don't
It's
either.
almost like teaching all over again.
Like, I've actually trained with the CPS worker, and she says on a regular basis I have 10 to 12 cases, and I can't get to all of them. So I have to choose.
So kids are slipping through the cracks, and she's got to pick the worst case scenario.
So you have to choose the worst case scenario, and some of them...
That gives me chills. I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here getting chills while she's saying that.
And it's horrible, and I wanted to be a social worker, and
I think that would have drained you.
It would have killed
completely.
me. It would have killed me.
Yep.
Because I probably would have became a serial killer.
Mad respect to teachers and social workers, though, because you guys do a really hard job, and
yes,
you don't have enough resources or support, and we know you're doing your best.
Yes.
And sometimes that just happens, but I think that's what we're missing out on society. We're so worried about politics and rich guys in I'm sorry, this is news, but rich guys dying in a submarine going to look at the Titanic wreckage. We're so worried about that kind of stuff that we're missing the important thing of building the foundation for our children. And they're going to be anxious little monsters. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just speaking about my own personally here.
I mean, I'm very worried that the crime rate is just going to continue to increase and younger kids. I mean,
they don't know how to deal with their anxiety, and
they don't know how to cope because they haven't been taught how to cope.
Right.
They've been given something, and that's what I was trained to do, was teach kids how to be able to self-soothe and self-regulate themselves to be able to function as human beings.
And that's kind of what you go through as a teacher or a parent.
Yes.
Like, there's always an element of self-soothing and regulation.
Giving them something immediately just to, and I know I'm not a parent.
We've all done it, where you immediately go, you know what, I'm tired, I had a long day at work, just fucking here. And that's not the right way to handle those situations. No matter how tired you are, don't give in to a kid making demands.
Yes, because really that's hurting them in a
more
way
than you.
That they're not going to be functioning adults.
Take the 5 minutes on the nights you're tired and put your foot down.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely. This is coming from a parent and a teacher.
Yes. So we are more than qualified on this particular topic.
Yeah, because I mean, I just seen another school shooting or another kid shooting somebody else.
Dude, I cry all the time. Like, I'm terrified to send my kid to school. Like, terrified.
Well, and like seeing the kids who get bullied. Like, I've watched documentaries where with the cyberbullying and them harming themselves.
That usually happens far before they snap and try to harm someone else. It's always
a lot of
cutting or some kind of...
Yeah, a lot of it begins with self-inflicting wounds until they can't
They don't feel anything from that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of it is not having that proper empathy. Like, they have no empathy. And that's what they notice a lot with killers, is that they don't have that sense of, oh, what I'm doing to you is hurting you.
And even if they do, I almost think that they don't care. Because they're controlling that person's pain, kind of, in a way.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, well, I know this is hurting you, but this is really great for me.
So in my sadistic way, my thing with life in prison and lethal injection. And again, full disclosure, this is my opinion, not yours.
You don't have to agree with us. That's fine.
You don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree. But my sadistic way is give them life in prison. And I know that we don't have a lot of resources for that either. Because, I mean, that's another situation.
That's a whole nother podcast episode.
That is a whole nother, yeah.
The prison system.
But having them go through life in prison, having to deal with the torturing memories of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So if they try to self-harm themselves, or if someone tries to harm them in jail, no, they get to come to the infirmary. They're not allowed to die. And
I don't know. I'm with you.
That's what I would tell them too. As they were coming, like, out of like the anesthesia or whatever, I'd be like, oh no, you didn't die. You get to relive this over and over and over.
This proves even normal people who are well-adjusted that have been to therapy.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a streak of something messed up, even with us, but, like, I totally agree with that. I think if you're fucked up enough to either rape or murder a child or murder another human being, absolutely make it rough to be in prison.
Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to die.
I feel like they need to be given, like, with child molesters.
Oh my God, that's specifically.
They need to be given tenfolds.
Prison needs to be hell for them, specifically.
Yeah. Like, and I know that child molesters and child murderers do not get it very well in jail.
Regular murderers don't have any sympathy for someone who would hurt a child, which I think is kind of, in a weird way, ironic. Awesome. Yeah.
It's very contradicting, I guess.
I guess they have a sense of right and wrong when it comes to you don't fuck with children.
They're
but
just
like adults are fine.
I'll kill adults all day, but when you touch kids, that's a different story.
That's weird how that worked out a little bit, but
it is. It's very weird, but it's like it's almost like purgatory for them.
Yes.
It's almost like
make it hell on earth.
Yes. It's kind of like Dante's Inferno in real life.
As a nice Christian woman, purgatory or hell on earth for someone who could do something like that to a child sounds like the perfect punishment to me.
I think so too. And
God
honestly,
said an eye for an eye for those of us Christians on this this channel. Yeah.
And that is one thing that I agree. And that is how I've always been.
Yep.
When it comes to anybody getting electrocuted, it's the ones.
It's too easy.
Yeah, it's the ones who don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ones that I do want to see fry.
Speaking of people that died in prison, did you see that the Unabomber killed himself?
Yes.
He's been in prison since, the early 90s?
Maybe one of those ghosts finally got to him.
They got in.
It just finally hit him.
I just want to know, how is he, A, given the resources, and B, left alone long enough to pull something like that off?
Okay, talking about that, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a hot second.
Here we go.
Why does it take someone to murder murder, assault, anything like that, for them to be able to get on proper medication or get the proper help when they've been taken to jail?
Why do they deserve it at that point? I guess.
Why do they deserve it at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it
that I can listen
that a murderer who was absolutely psychotic on the outside is finally able to get meds, antipsychotic meds,
and graduate college.
Yes. And have multiple degrees under. Why don't I start killing people? I'm doing it all wrong.
3 hots in a cot, as my mom used to joke about
I'm
that'd
doing
be a vacation.
I'm doing this all wrong. That's just like me back in high school thinking, oh man, I could get a lot of healthcare stuff if I would just get knocked up and be a single mom.
Well, she was joking whenever I was a teenager because I was real mouthy, and she was like, well, prison at this point would be a vacation because at least I'd get 3 meals a day and I'd get a chance to nap and get away from you. She was never serious, okay, but as a parent now, you're there.
But it boggles my mind is that these people could have gotten some type of psychotic help, antipsychotic meds on the outside.
Yes. but chose not to, or didn't have the way to
they
it.
chose not to, or they just did not have the proper help, or
fill in the blank there. There's always a reason.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
To killing somebody, to being able to get, oh well, this person is schizophrenic, they need to be on antipsychotics. You could have done that years ago.
Mm-hmm. Also, those are unforgivable things that I think people should be in prison for a long time for. Messed up assaults that go to, the rape level or the molestation level, and murderers are over here to me. Everybody else, like, if you're a petty thief, yes, you deserve rehabilitation. You deserve to try to better yourself, get medication. Things that you can actually bring someone back from.
Yes. If
you're a murderer, there's no way that you're ever going to go back into regular society and
there's no way for
kill
you
somebody
to
else.
Rehabilitate. There's no possible way.
Especially if it's a chemical imbalance.
Unless it's one of those situations where, like, a parent manipulates their child into killing a parent.
Oh, yeah, there's special conditions,
because I also watch Evil Lives Here. And there have been many cases where there have been children who was manipulated, who were adults and talking about this, and they were still tormented because their parent told them that this parent is dying of cancer and we need to put them out of their misery.
Now, I'm for if you have cancer and you want to make that decision for yourself, I'm all for if you want to just be done, be done. But that is not the way to handle that.
Yeah.
You never get a poor child involved in that.
And not knowing the malicious intent behind it.
Yeah.
Finding out when you're older, finding out that the whole reason why they wanted to do that was to keep their hands clean.
And yours
and
dirty.
And to get, and to keep them under, under their thumb for anything in the future, just to get life insurance money.
Mm-hmm. Like that crazy ass woman that taught her daughter that she had like 17 illnesses.
Yeah.
Gypsy Rose.
Yeah.
And then she was always sick and always dying. I mean, at that point, that's the kind of murder that I can go, okay, listen, that girl has been abused for how long?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those. And they were
giving
scenarios.
her cancer medicine, and she was getting sick because she didn't actually have the disease.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah, at that point, that's an eye for an eye situation I can get behind.
Because really, her mom was sick. She had, what's that disease?
Munchausen's by proxy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's one that I was really obsessed with. Because I was like, I cannot believe as a parent going, you're sick and you're dying, and we're going to go to Disney World now for free.
And she's not the only one. There have been so many.
Yeah, that's not uncommon, which is kind of messed up.
Which is kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the ones that, like, who have that disease that will, like, swallow metal and stuff.
Ugh.
And, like, do all this type of stuff just to prove that they're sick. Which is really weird. I don't understand it. I mean,
another mental issue that we don't get.
I'm not mentally stable myself. But in a different way.
In a healthier way.
Yes, in a healthier way. Like
you also go and get medicated and see doctors, and you have an issue.
I am definitely on the drug
which
therapy.
Which sets you apart from those that don't go and get what they need.
Yeah. Well, and it also helps that I have family who is like, I am seeing signs, I think you need to go see a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And they encourage going to a doctor.
And that sometimes is the difference.
Yes. Having that proper encouragement and saying, hey, something's wrong, you should probably go see somebody.
You got to have somebody in your life that you trust enough with that information to get the good advice, and I think that's another thing that's missing.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
And I'm very thankful to have the doctor that I do, because he's not one to just throw me on meds and call it a day.
Which is the wrong approach.
Yes, and there are many doctors out there that do abuse that.
You got to work through what's causing the root issue.
Where he tries to get me to do therapeutic things that make me happy, that make me distracted. But
natural serotonin. We were talking about that earlier today.
And so he gets to know me, and he knows what I like to do, but also he knows that I need a little extra boost.
Mm-hmm.
So he will actually not increase my meds, but he will change, because he's never seen a positive outcome with increasing meds.
One of my kids.
He's never seen a positive outcome with increasing meds.
No.
And actually, with increasing meds, if any of you have read any of your things, the more you increase with your meds, especially with anxiety and depression, it actually starts to deteriorate your nervous system.
It also, I think I found, if I ever get mine increased, I feel the side effect of being suicidal a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of the stronger the meds, the stronger the impulse. And that's a little scary too.
What's really scary is that the stronger the meds, which we've had to do that before, where he did increase me, or no, he didn't increase me. He kept me on one antidepressant and then started me on another one and didn't tell me to wean off of the other one. So I was getting the double antidepressant, which actually made me very dead inside.
Where you're just like numb and
I
feel
was
nothing.
so numb, and there was like no emotion. Like there could have been, I could have watched something that was so sad and not be affected by it at all.
Yeah.
Because I felt so dead inside.
Which maybe that's the coming full circle back to, true crime. Is that the deal?
Yeah.
Are they overly medicating people? And
well,
that's why
and there
snapping?
are some that do a lot of self-medicating because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And that also results in the increase, since it's self-medicating, it's not helping anything. You think it's helping you.
Yes.
But it's not in the way that you think it's supposed to be, which makes your symptoms even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you go on your psychotic break of killing people.
Yeah. Again, brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Because that's what
I'm telling you, bodies are fascinating, and the functioning of brains, like, we're learning new things every single day.
You know what would be cool? Finding a scientist to be willing to talk to us about brain chemistry.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Okay, listeners, listen to me. If there are any doctors out there, anybody,
we would love to talk to you.
We would love to talk to you. You need to send it in to us. What's our email again?
TammyandWanda@gmail.com.
There you go. Just plug it in there. And
we'd also love to talk to a therapist or a psychologist or anybody, even a sociologist, anybody that's got any kind of insight on the human psyche or how the brain works or how...
Yeah, because this is definitely a subject line that I love.
We both kind of get into this, though, because it's like, that's the scariest thing to me. I could watch a slasher flick all day long and not feel much.
Like, not going to space, that doesn't scare me.
No.
Going to the ocean, that does kind of scare me.
Well, it's scary shit down there, okay? Let's be real.
But the brain, that's some scary shit right there.
And to me, like, watching something on a serial killer or that has to do with a psychological issue is far more terrifying because it's so realistic. Yeah. When you're watching Halloween, the killer's like, whatever. And that might scare you in the moment, but that's not a realistic representation of what a serial killer does.
Yeah.
It's also
when
so
you
gory,
listen to
like,
those,
whatevs.
It's when you listen to those fucking tapes, just listening to, like, Ted Bundy.
And him laugh about these poor dead girls, and you're like, what are you doing?
Jeffrey Dahmer giving a play-by-play, and John Wayne Gacy, and even
the killer clown.
Even the BTK
Yikes.
killer.
Yeah.
Just hearing him talk about why he did. Like,
their victims.
Just listening to them, it's very narcissistic. They don't have remorse. They will show remorse for TV.
And I'm going to tell you, the only fiction that I've ever seen that has accurately represented what a serial killer is like is Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter is the only fictional reference I've ever seen that got it correct.
Another great show, fellow listeners, is Signs of a Psychopath.
Ooh, this I have not seen.
And it's on Discovery Plus.
Discovery Plus is great.
I know. Discovery Plus is where my true crime is. That's where I get all of my shows.
Well, because it's like real stuff, and you're like learning things.
And just listening to these people, and they have psychoanalysts, and they have forensic psychologists that explain things to you and how it all works. Like, when they're in for interviews, when psychopaths or sociopaths are in a interview, they're going to put on a show.
Because it's all about them and their
yes,
rampant narcissism.
So, and what is pretty amazing is that these detectives, they start to know, or how, like when they talk to them and stuff, how to progress. Like, if someone is very narcissistic, oh, well, tell me how this person would have done it.
And that's the only way that you get Ted Bundy to talk.
Yes, and having them, like, go, oh, I'm on my platform. All right, well.
I'm getting all the attention now.
Yes, and they never, like, do, like, the good cop, bad cop with them. It's always, let's stroke their ego, and they'll eventually tell us. There are some that just flat out and say, yeah, I did. Like this woman, who I think would be a great torturer of murderers and
give her a job in
molesters.
jail. Yeah.
This woman. Oh my God! I will have to send you the episode because it's intense. She flat out, like, during the interview, like the detective is asking her and all this stuff, and she's like, "Well, I killed him because he was a narc. And yeah, I did torture him. Yeah, I know he was a paraplegic, but I didn't care. I thought he was faking it all, so I decided to,
test a theory?
This woman was just like giving a play-by-play of what was going on. At the end of the day, this guy was not a narc. He was just a sweet man who had barely any feeling in his legs. So he was in a wheelchair and stuff. She tortured him for 3 days before she killed him.
See, that's somebody who doesn't see the world like the rest of us. You know what I mean?
And she even said in an interview to a journalist and says, if I could do it again, I would.
And you go, ew, all right.
So I think it would be fantastic if she was just one of those people. If you told her that they were an informant or they hurt children, I'm sure she would take the time.
Problem takes care of itself, kind of.
Right? Like, she's in there for life. She's in jail for life. I mean, there's no problem. Let's just rid the population. Let's go.
She would do it too, I have a feeling.
Wow, the more I hear myself talk, I'm like, wow, I may be sadistic.
But you don't carry out those thoughts.
I don't.
That's the difference between you and a serial killer.
Just, I feel like there should be some justice in the world, and I really think that would be one of them.
Yes.
Having a murderer kill someone who is just as evil as them.
Poll time. We're gonna let you guys tell us on our social media, but who do you think the most sadistic or messed up serial killer of all time is? If you had to nominate anybody, who would it be? My vote's Ted Bundy all day long.
I'm gonna have to say John Wayne Gacy.
Okay.
He's definitely up there because, I mean, he lured a lot of young men.
Yeah.
And he took the time to bury them in his house.
That's a whole new level of fucked up.
That is a level of fucked up, and that takes some time. But you have to think that he was thinking premeditatively.
Where do I put this body after I'm done killing it?
I am going to put these bodies in my basement instead of disposing them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the time, and when I run out of space here, I'm going to start burying them in the backyard.
I want their dead bodies near me.
Yeah.
Close.
So it's like, and of course it was around the same time as Jeffrey Dahmer, so I don't know what it was about that year.
It's a bad year for humans.
Because, I mean, I think Dahmer was at the end of his time in the 90s when John Wayne Gacy was arrested. I want to say.
We'll have to look that up.
I want to say the timelines are very close between those two. So it was like, I don't know what was going on those few years. I don't know if they licked as much lead paint as I think they did.
I'm sure they did.
They probably consumed a lot of it. Like, I mean, or their family life was beyond fucked up. I mean, Dahmer's was.
Yeah.
Dahmer's was really messed up.
Faux show.
But, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a documentary about how they talk about his life.
I'm not
growing
sure.
up.
All right, kids. Who is your favorite serial killer? We'll see you in your dreams. In your nightmares.
Goodbye.
Next time.
Next time.